Hello vinyl lovers, Uncle Roddus back again with some more vinyl video, recent acquisitions. Okay, well, very early this morning, we just got back from 2 weeks in Australia and we spent most of that time in Sydney. We had a wedding up in Queensland to go to, and then we got down to Sydney and stayed with the sister-in-law for a couple of weeks, and it was fantastic. And I got to go to quite a few record stores around the Sydney area. There were 3 in the central city area I went to, a couple in Newtown, one I missed out on, which I didn't find, which, a little bit limited on time, even though I was there for 2 weeks. I wasn't there just for record hunting. And then a couple of other shops around the outer suburbs when we got to those areas. We actually jumped on a ferry across the harbour yesterday, or the day before yesterday, because we spent a couple of nights in the city and down on the rocks in the old part of Sydney. And we stumbled into a second-hand bookshop with quite a large selection of really cool records. Unfortunately, I'd already bought a considerable amount of records by then, and even though we had some really interesting, some library music, some avant-garde, modern classical type sort of stuff, or weird, more experimental music. They had some blues, some great jazz, good couple of boxes of jazz. I was really impressed, and I could have bought a lot more there if I hadn't have already sort of had a fairly full case. I managed to bring back, I think, 13 records. That was on my carry-on, on my backpack. That was my 7 kg, so that was good to know that I can carry 13 records without it going over the limit of the weight, although I don't know if they would have noticed it, checked it anyway, but it was getting fucking heavy on my shoulder. I just want to touch base on a couple of things that turned up before we went away. This here had been on back order for quite some time. This is Grim Limited, a New Zealand garage rock and roll band from the mid-60s, 4-piece band. This is, now, I don't know whether they actually put anything out in their time. They were a band from New Plymouth. Where is it? Palmerston North. That's not far away from New Plymouth, so quite close together. Yeah, this was a 60s garage rock, really good, apparently, live band. This is a live recording. They never released anything in their lifetime, and there we are 57 years later. They bring this out. Mostly covers, pretty much all covers. I think there's not any original tracks on here. Just on the black vinyl. We've got things like Milk Cow Blues, some Chuck Berry, some Who, Ray Charles, Van Morrison's Gloria, nothing original, but yeah, pretty cool record. A great document of a apparently really great live band. There were plenty of comments on Facebook, people who had, some of the old. This is my father's generation, really. Some guys who'd played with the band or in the same venue with them and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a little bit of New Zealand rock and roll history. And also I picked up from flying out this Sonic Youth live double LP of their very last gig in New York from 2011. The final US show live in Brooklyn, 2011, 2 LPs. This is really good. There is not a lot of, there's a lot of live Sonic Youth stuff online, but it's all download. There's not a lot of stuff on vinyl. This is some sort of limited edition on pink vinyl. Yep, both on pink vinyl. So that was a really nice score. I'd seen it mentioned earlier in the year, and I hadn't thought much about it. And then I was just checking out the Flying Out website, and there it was. And so I snapped that up, and I think finally this was also Flying Out This was actually on sale, so I got about $15 off the price. So I've been meaning to pick this up for ages. This is irreversible entanglements. Open the gates. Now, on the International Anthem imprint, this is their third release. This one's a double. As you can see, it's a double gatefold. To be honest, I haven't had a chance. I played it a couple of times before I left, but I haven't had a chance to really give it some airtime because I haven't been here. So I've got a record just playing now in the background. It's the first record I've got to play for over 2 weeks. So I've been hanging out to play all these new records. So what I am playing, you probably can't hear it that clearly behind me, this is a band called Reptiles at Dawn. So the first record shop I went to, the first couple of days in Sydney, we managed to get into the main city. My wife's brother was staying in the city. He came down from the wedding, and so my wife's sister and her brother were hanging out a lot together, and so her sister brought us into town because we were staying at her place. And so we went looking around the city, just blown away by the city. I mean, I live in a tiny wee town in the middle of the countryside, and Sydney is the biggest city in Australasia. It's pretty mind blowing for an old, young anymore am I, for a country boy like me. Reptiles at Dawn. This is going to be obviously part of my New Zealand music collection because this band was rooted in New Zealand, sourced in New Zealand originally. They were called the Dum Dum Boys, and they had an album out which I picked up an original copy a few years back, and then they've just reissued their album recently, and then they become the Henchmen, and then they put out an album as the Henchmen, and then they moved over to Melbourne, I think, and a couple of the guys, I'm not sure how many of them are still New Zealanders in the band, at least one or maybe 4 people in the band. And they put out a couple of albums back in the late 80s, and they've been on my want list for a while. I haven't seen any in New Zealand. They're not expensive records, they're on Discogs. You can pick them up fairly cheap. So that's what's playing behind, so sort of punky rock sort of stuff. So Red Eye was an impressive little shop. That was probably one of the bigger record shops I went to. So I had quite a look into their jazz, and so I picked up a couple of jazz records. So they had a really good. So I've been able to get onto some tone poets. I don't see any tone poets around in here in Christchurch, or hardly. When I do, they're in triple figure prices. They're at least $110 to pay for them. So over in Aussie, they seem to be quite a lot cheaper. So a lot of the shops I went into had pretty good jazz selections, but mostly Blue Note. So I did find some ECMs in a shop, but they were reissued ones. They were quite expensive. The pricing in Australia, it wasn't revelationary. It wasn't great. It was slightly. These were slightly cheaper than here, but most of the stuff wasn't that. And a lot of second-hand stuff was quite expensive. There were a lot of triple-figure records on the wall at Red Eye. A couple of New Zealand ones, Verlaine's, and another shop I saw another couple of New Zealand ones that were quite big. So anyway, I got into the tone poet section and the jazz section, and I've picked up quite a few Blue Notes and tone poets. So I'm really pleased about that. So I know some of the tone poets, they seem to be more on the more traditional hard boppy sort of. There's not really a lot of free stuff or extreme jazz on these. And Blue Note is a little bit like that anyway. I've got quite a lot of Blue Notes. So Harold Vick stepping out with Blue Mitchell, Grant Green, John Patton and Ben Dixon. I suspect this will be a fairly smooth affair. So really looking forward to hearing them. So these are all gatefold. I mean, I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with the tone poets. So I managed to get the sticker off this one and stick it on there so we know it's a tone poet. So looking forward to having that. And also from that shop, I picked up this Tone Poet by Dexter Gordon with Donald Byrd, Kenny Drew, Nels Henning, Osted Pedersen, I don't know him, and Art Taylor. So another great lineup of stuff. Beautifully presented in these gatefold heavy duty. These range between $55 and $79 that I picked up, these Blue Notes. So it took me a while to find it, but I found a little shop in an arcade upstairs in Sydney, not far from where we were centralising ourselves on the Queen Victoria building, which is a fantastic, beautiful building. It was built in 1898, and it's like got multi-levels. It's like a mall, but it's pretty upper class sort of stuff, but it's very, very good. And not far from there, or Red Eye was just across the road from there, and then the next block over on the other side of the building, there was a place called Birdland. And Birdland took me a while to find it. It was upstairs. It was right around the back of the mall in a little corner. No signage outside. I actually could hear the music coming out the door, and so I wandered up and found it. Again, he had a very good. It didn't have much second-hand stuff, whereas Red Eye had quite a big second-hand section. Red Eye, I say, was probably the biggest. This one was it was a little boutique store. He had a lot of CDs, which I didn't even look at, but he had a lot of jazz, mostly jazz. His biggest selection was jazz. He had some rock stuff. He did second-hand bins that I looked at, which wasn't much in there, to be honest. That interested me. But what I did find was this reissue of Sun Ra and his orchestra featuring Pharoah Saunders. I did see quite a few Sun Ra records, actually. A lot of the shops. A lot more than I see around here, and their prices were not too bad. So this is a 1976 release, originally on L Saturn, with Pharoah Saunders and Black Harold. This is a Superior Viaduct reissue from, I think, 2014, 2015. I probably have this on CD, I'm pretty sure I do, but that was cool. $50 price tag on that, which is actually quite good. So 50 Australian. Well, the exchange rate between New Zealand and Australia is pretty close. So also from Birdland, I picked up. This was on special. So most of his Blue Notes were $60 each, and it's probably what we're paying for them here. So this is a recent reissue from 2021. So this is the anniversary audiophile reissues. Be interesting to have a listen to compare some of these supposedly audiophile reissues and the Tone Poets, but they tended not to be the same ones. Although in saying that, there are some Tone Poet releases of the 75th anniversary ones I've got. So this is Reuben Wilson, Love Bug, Lee Morgan on this, George Coleman, Grant Green, Leo Morris on drums, and Reuben on the organ. So yeah, I don't know what this is going to be like, but it was reasonably cheap, and it's a Blue Note, so I collect Blue Notes. And then finally from that shop, I came across this. This was really cheap. This was only $35. This is a limited edition release piano solo. Limited edition of 500 numbered. This is number 67 from 2014. Yuri Kane. I know Yuri from he plays his. I've got him on playing on some of John Zorn stuff. I think he did a solo Book of Angels volume 2 of the Masada stuff. Excuse me. So this was pretty cool. I thought, I'll snap that up for that sort of price. So I got to a couple of JB hi-fis. There was one in a mall not far from where we were. It was quite a nice little mall. My wife went there several times. They weren't huge JBs, and I found another JB, slightly bigger one. Oh, excuse me. The JB hi-fis were really disappointing. Pricing was, they were pretty expensive. again, 50, 60, 70 Australian dollars. Mostly new reissue of some alternative, but the popular alternative and hard rock. They had a metal section, but their shops were big, but their vinyl selection was really, really small compared to what we've actually got in Christchurch at the one here. And the one in Christchurch, last time I was in there, I don't normally shop there because I think they find it a bit of a pain in the ass. They jam their records into the thing so tight, bin so tight. But I did find a couple of records at this shop. I mean, I went back there a couple of times just because my wife was shopping in the morning. She'd look at clothes and that sort of shit. And so, but I picked this up. I have been on the lookout for these latest ones, and I'm a wee bit behind on Ryan Adams, but this is his Big Colours album from 2021. This is a limited edition with the extra 7-inch single, which is like the Wednesdays record that I picked up by him was similar, and this one's on the yellow vinyl. And so I love Ryan. I know he's a douchebag and an asshole, but he puts out great music. So I picked up that the first visit, and then the wife was doing some shopping, so I popped back in again, and I had a look, and they had some other records that were actually quite cheap, and so I picked up Jack White's this record because it was cheap, and I managed to pick up his other one cheap that I've shown. So this is the previous album to the one that I've already got. So there's a few I'm missing because I sort of lost interest in them for a couple of records, but I don't know what this one's going to be like. But I have enjoyed the latest one, which I can't remember the name of it now. Entering Heaven Alive. So I picked this up for about $35 Australian, so that's pretty good. And also in that same shop, I picked this one up pretty damn cheap as well. And this is a really great album. So this is an Australian band. Obviously there was a lot of Australian music in all these shops, but I'm not familiar with it. I mean, there were the old stuff. There's a bit of AC/DC originals, really fucking expensive over there, and here. Yeah, so a lot of the obvious Australian bands which I've seen, but a lot I don't know about. But this one, not so many people know about it, but they did pretty well. They were hard. This is a hard rock, punky sort of, but really poppy band. Some great tracks on this. So this was the 25th anniversary reissue of the original, and I actually have this on CD, to be honest. I've had it for many years. This is on the bright red vinyl. I'm not going to take that out of the package there because let's see that. This is what I hate about fucking paper sleeves. Absolute garbage. Anyway, so that's a great record. So that's cool to have it. Picked it up pretty cheap. So that was my haul from JB Hi-Fi's. So yeah, not that impressed. I do want to go back to the one here when I got some spare cash, because when they have the next big sale, because there was quite a lot of Blue Notes at the Riccarton shop last time I was there. Now I got to a little shop still in the third shop in the central city was called Utopia Records, and they advertise themselves as Australia's #1 heavy metal shop. So yeah, it was in a little dungeon under you walk down the stairs off the street. It was all black kind of inside. That was a pretty big shop actually, and they had a pretty big selection of second-hand stuff. I mean, not all metal, but there was a lot of metal there, and most of it I had no idea about. But in the second-hand department, I picked this up, and this could be really interesting. So this is the Speed Kills Volume 5. Now this was a UK under one flag released in, I think, the late 80s or early 90s. There's a series of them. So speed metal, now this is the sort of stuff that I used to like. There's a bit of a tear on it, unfortunately. It wasn't too expensive. But yeah, it's interesting. There's an exploited track on this. There's the albums that the songs come off. Anthrax is on here, isn't it? I think. Did I remember? Nuclear Assault, I kind of remember some of the names. I'm not familiar with all the music, but or maybe Anthrax is on one of the other volumes. But it's interesting that the Exploited were on here. Reanimator, Nuclear Assault, Acid Rain, CIA, Dethrone. This is going to be interesting. So, yeah, the speed metal was the sort of the metal that kind of probably, because I got Metallica's first LP, which is fucking awesome, and I had Megadeth records and stuff when I was younger. So I'll be interesting to see how this holds up and if it's really good, and maybe I'll have to track down the other 4 volumes. So that was my heavy metal purchase from Australia's #1 heavy metal shop. I'll just take the needle off the record. But also, now, also from the shop, I'll show you something in a second. I went over to Australia thinking, much bigger country, 25 million people, so there's going to be a lot bigger record shops, a lot more interesting records. Yes, there was, but to be honest, compared to here, it wasn't a big step up. So, what I was hoping to find was I've picked up a few of the Zappa Records reissues, and I've been so impressed with the quality, the sound quality. They've been beautiful. And I thought, Mothers of Invention Freak Out is my all-time favourite record, and I don't have it on vinyl at the moment. I used to have an original vinyl copy or a original reissue from way back that got thrashed to death when I was in my 20s, and that kind of got sold off of my collection. So everywhere I looked, I was hoping to find that, and plus I was also looking out for compilations, the Brown Acids compilations, but no, nobody had any of those over there. So I did find this at Utopia. So this is the Zappa Records reissue of the we're only in it for the money. I've got this on CD. I'm pretty familiar with this. So a lot of you know this record, I'm sure. Now, the one thing that was interesting to me is this sourced. The source says it's this 1993 1630 digital master. Now, this is an official reissue or release number 4 of the zapparecords.com. So I'm going to have a look at my other ones that I've got. So I've got Hot Rats, and I've got Weasels Rip My Flesh, and I've got a couple of others of the reissues so far that I've picked up. I've got Grand Wazoo I just picked up recently. I've got a considerable number of the Ryko disc 1993 digital remasters that Zappa, I think, remastered himself digitally just before he died, and all those records came out a bit because he died in '93 from memory. Those CDs are okay, but I think their reputation isn't that good. So I'm really interested in the fact that this says that it's sourced from those, and not from original analog, which is a bit disappointing, to be honest. So I'm going to investigate a little bit further, because Hot Rats, the reissue of this on this series of Hot Rats, phenomenal sound. It sounds fantastic, and so does the Grand Wazoo. I mean, I haven't got many of these reissues, but I'm pretty pleased to pick them up. It's sort of, yeah, because some people are really anal on the analog, aren't they? So in Brookvale, DY area, which is the home of the Manly Sea Eagles League team, there is a shop that I found online when I was looking up for the shop, and they are claiming to be the oldest record shop in Sydney, and they were called Sandy's Records. So they were a nice little shop. So you walk in, it's just in the main shopping centre off the main highway right there. There's about halfway between where we were staying out at Bayview and the city, which is like an hour's travel into there. Walked into the shop. It was all CDs at the front of the shop, and then the vinyl was out the back where the counter was. Reasonably big selection, but not big enough that I actually got through most of the selection. All new stuff, no second hand, mostly reissues of stuff. I think I mentioned that at one of the other shops tonight. It was all reissues of that was JB. Quite a good jazz selection in this shop. I think, they're definitely better jazz selections, but over there than over here. But mostly in the Blue Note stuff, there was some prestige and some impulses. Anyway, picked up 2 more tone poets. So Lee Morgan, the Raj, Hank Mobley, Cedar Walton, Paul Chambers, and Billy Higgins. So I picked that up, and this is probably the cheapest one I picked up. So I picked up that, and finally, the last of so 4 tone poets all up, plus that one. So yeah, I've done pretty well on my Blue Note collecting anyway. So nothing that I really wanted to pick up I could find over there. But yeah, finally this one is, I like Freddie Hubbard, he's really cool. Breaking Point with James Spaulding, Ronnie Matthews, Eddie Kahn, and Joe Chambers. So those names are not as so familiar to me. So yeah, 4 tone poets. So really looking forward to having a sit down and a listen to those. And like I said, it's a pity I don't have any. I mean, I did see some tone poets of a record that I already have on Blue Note, and I was a bit tempted to, but I'd rather buy something I haven't got. Anyway, as I said earlier in the video, we jumped on the ferry across to Manly, which isn't that far away from Brookvale and Sandy's record, but a bit too far to walk between the places, perhaps. Yeah, so great little second-hand bookshop, some really cool books. So my wife was pretty pleased to have a look through the books there, and I checked through. They had a really good jazz selection, and I come across this, so could have been a lot more I could have bought from that shop, and the prices weren't too bad, although he did have a really cool record by a band called Jeff St. John's, I think they were called, which are an Aussie band from back in the 60s, and I used to have that record many years ago. I really enjoyed it. That was $100. So Mike Knox Talesman. This is a US release of Mike Knox. He's a New Zealand jazz pianist, and I collect his records. And I thought, oh well, it's a Mike Knox record. I can't afford, and I can't carry any more records onto the plane. We've got no more room in the luggage because my wife's shopping flat out too as well. So she's already got more luggage than we arrived with. So yeah, I grabbed this and I was like, oh yeah, I don't know this record. I didn't know. So yeah, it's a US reversion, 1981 on Inja. Checked onto Discogs. Turns out I've already bloody got this record because this is the US version and it's under a completely different title and a completely different cover than the one that I've got that was released in Australia and New Zealand, which was just called Solo. So I was a bit disappointed in that. Yeah. So, 1981, so there's just Mike Knox. It's all mostly self-pen stuff, so just him on the piano. So, yeah, that was a little bit disappointing, but, that's cool. I'll keep it, or I'll trade it when I get into town next to Penny Lane. So, okay, well, that's probably quite a long video, so I shall go and listen to some of those. My wife's still asleep because we didn't get home till 5 a.m. this morning because the plane was delayed from Sydney by 2 hours, and then daylight saving kicked in. We lost another hour, so we should have been here at 1 o'clock. We didn't get till 5, so I've had a few hours sleep, not a lot. But it's pissing down with rain. It's cold as hell, so we've got the fire going and going to relax for the afternoon. All right. Well, it is the last week of September 2023, and you probably won't see this video for quite a while. But that was my trip to Aussie, to all the records. I did go. Oh, yes. When I went to Newtown, I forgot to mention that I went to Newtown. It was very Egg Records was very highly recommended. It was a cool wee shop, mostly second hand. A friend had said that they had some really, really cool New Zealand stuff. They did have a New Zealand section. There was only about 5 records in it, plus one on the wall. The one that was on the wall was a Belter Space record. They wanted $100 for that. The rest of the New Zealand stuff was stuff I didn't I already had or didn't want. It was pretty small. I didn't look through the 7-inch collections. I know this guy collects 7 inches, so he has done pretty well there for that. But so I actually didn't end up buying anything from that shop. And then the other one was just across the road around the corner, and I can't even remember what it was called now. It's a funny kind of name. That was mostly new stuff. And I didn't actually find anything in there either. Um, I mean, when you're on a trip like that, you can only carry so many records back, and also, I did have a bit more funds I could have played with, to be honest. Um, but yeah, it was just, it was like buying stuff that was like, oh, really need that. But I did pick up some cool records, but there wasn't a lot of, holy fuck, I need to buy this record, There wasn't any of those over there, which was, a bit disappointing. But anyway, all right, I'll stop prattling on and enjoy your day. See you again. Cheers.